on the weather data team at the New York Times. And I want to tell you a little bit about that team. It started about a year ago, and it's an effort by the New York Times to help people understand extreme weather. And those are things like hurricanes and floods, wildfires related to weather, smoke, things like that. So about a year ago, we brought together a team of people to do exactly that. Now, the New York Times is not new to covering weather. There have been weather disasters for years and years. What we are doing is that we are helping the newspaper and the online service, of course, cover weather, extreme weather, using data and graphics and charts, and bringing on a professional meteorologist. We actually hired our first meteorologist at the New York Times to help us cover the weather. So this is an example from not too long ago, earlier our summer, a few months ago. And here's the homepage of the New York Times. And on 3 locations here are things that we were doing on that day. One is a little box about the air quality in various cities across the United States. Down here is a story about a heat wave and a very intense amount of heat that was happening in the southwestern United States. And at the very bottom, you can see a forecast for dangerous heat across the United States for 6 days. And that's a tracker that we have, that we publish I think it runs every few hours to show what the extreme heat is across the United States. It's one of many kinds of trackers that we do. These are graphics that are being updated regularly, whether it's daily, hourly, even sometimes every few minutes, to show things like extreme heat, smoke across the United States and Canada, precipitation, hurricanes, and air quality. And this is information that we're trying to bring to people, not just in New York City, where we're based, but across the United States, and eventually, we hope, the world. In some cases, we do cover world weather, including the heat, and we can cover hurricanes and typhoons and earthquakes. Not really weather, but we still cover that too. And as I mentioned, we have a meteorologist on staff. This is somebody who's trained to cover the weather and can help write stories before something happens, so can forecast what's happening. This is relatively new. Certainly, the Times hadn't had a meteorologist on staff, so we can do that, and we can provide context for our readers and help our newsroom cover the weather even before it happens. This is Judson. He is our meteorologist. He also does TikTok videos and explainers and helps the readers understand what's going on. We also have developed a service that's pretty unique, and this is an email service. We will actually send you an email when there's going to be extreme weather in some place that you care about. And in our case, we can have people pick 4 locations. I'm sorry, this is only for the US right now, so you can't do it for Argentina. I apologize. But you can pick 4 locations, and then we will send you an email if there's going to be extreme weather. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. Across the board, what we are trying to do is we're trying to help people understand extreme weather with accuracy, as clear as possible, and utility. I want these things to be as useful to people as possible. And again, mostly this is for the United States, but across the United States, not just in New York City. We want to make it possible for people in small towns to be able to look up and know whether or not there's a risk of extreme weather. And when we do that, we can put these things on the homepage, we can add maps and forecasts. So earlier this year, when we had a huge wildfire smoke condition in New York City, you may have seen pictures. The skies were orange, it was very intense. People went to the New York Times to find out what was going on, when was it going to go away, and we had a map there using government data to show the forecast for smoke. This trick of using government data in presenting it in a way that's understandable, that's clear, that's useful, is something that we do a lot. So I'm going to give you an example with hurricanes. So let's go back. Sorry, here we go. So Here we are using government data to track hurricanes around the globe. And this is something that the Times, again, has done before. But in this case, you can actually zoom in and see, is the hurricane going to come to my town or some place that I care about? What's the % chance that there will be dangerous winds? And this ability to zoom in and look at the towns that you're interested in is part of this utility that we're trying to convey. You can even zoom in almost to street level to see where flooding is predicted. So the Weather Service in the United States puts out information about where the water might be pushed ashore from a hurricane and flood areas. And this is an example, again, almost down to the street level. Yep. There we go. One of the biggest questions that people have when there's a hurricane coming toward them is it going to hit me, and when, right? What time will it hit me? And the Weather Service in the United States puts out this map, but it's kind of hard to tell exactly when the hurricane might be hitting your town. So we went in and took that data and turned it into a different form. It's not even a map. It's actually a chart, where you can actually you can enter in your city, and you can find out when the dangerous winds are expected in your town, when it's the earliest possible that they might arrive, and when it's most likely that they might arrive. This, to me, is super useful, and to the people on the ground who might not see their town on a map, they want to know exactly when this is possible, they can put in their town and look it up. This is the kind of utility, the usefulness that we want to bring to our audience ahead of a storm, and then when the storm comes, they're prepared. Okay, let's talk a little bit about that email service that I mentioned. This is something that we developed using, again, government data. The government data is on this website, which is a little hard to navigate, just to be honest. It has a lot of maps and a lot of information, and not a lot of people just go here to find out the weather, but we wanted to make it easy for people to keep track of places that they care about. So the concept was this. This is a map that the Weather Service puts out predicting the possibility, the risk of tornadoes, okay? And you can see down in the southern United States, near New Orleans, there's a higher risk. It's the red zone. So if you imagine, if I pick 3 cities and I say, these 3 cities are important to me. They're New York, Minneapolis, and New Orleans. So I've told the New York Times that these are important to me. Well, in this case, you would get an email because New Orleans is in the danger zone, right? It's a higher risk of tornadoes. This is actually something that happened. I was giving a presentation just like this, and I pulled up this map, and I said, we would send you an email. And in fact, later that day, a tornado hit New Orleans. It was the kind of thing that was exactly what we wanted to be able to do, to alert people that, hey, this might be possible. So keep an eye out for things, maybe pay attention to the local news, and you may have to deal with tornadoes in your area. And in fact, they did. This story, we actually ended up adding a map of all of the tornado sightings and damage that was reported. And you can see here, lots of cases of tornadoes in the southern United States. And just for fun, I decided to overlay that danger zone, and it lines up pretty well. So even that morning, the Weather Service was pretty good about knowing when where the tornadoes might happen. They missed a few of them, but still got a lot of it. So these folks in these areas would be alerted if we had an email. So we made it. We also do something else. The Weather Service, for a lot of very, very good reasons, has lots of categories of risk. Slight risk, moderate, enhanced risk, lots of words they use. And we worked with the experts to try to boil those down into 3 categories: some risk, moderate risk, and high risk. And then we use those colors and that information to put it on the map and to allow you to see every day what the risk is for the places that you care about. You may have heard or seen that we recently had some serious flooding in New York City. It was a very intense day. There's lots of water. This is New York and our coverage of it. And in fact, that day I got the email because I subscribe to the service and I have New York as one of my places. And on here in the second paragraph, it said, places at moderate risk of excessive rainfall are likely to see flash floods, some of which could be significant. Urban areas and roads that are prone to flash flooding are most likely to be affected. That's what happened. So we were able to let people know ahead of time and during even, that this was going to be a problem. So far, the services that we can, or the conditions that we can alert people to with this service include tornadoes, or the risk of tornadoes, the risk of hail, high winds, excessive rain, and hurricanes. We can know this information 1 to 3 days out, these risk levels. For hurricanes, we can know even more days out. And we hope to add heat, cold, and severe winter weather too, snow and blizzards. Okay, so these are all of the people who helped do this. I am very fortunate, as Aaron mentioned, to work at an organization with a lot of really talented people, but this was a collaboration of the weather team, the graphics team, the email team, and the news technology team, and a design team. So a lot of people worked together to bring this all together. There were interesting things that we had to deal with. In fact, the notion of sending out an email, a different email for everybody, was a little bit tricky, right? So I may pick different cities than you do, and then that you would get a different email than I would. Also, the issue of not sending an email turns out to be an issue, because normally you have an email list and you send everybody something, but we don't send emails on days when there are no risks. So that turned out to be a tricky thing. So I am going to be able to answer even more questions about this at the media fair later today. And you'll notice that early on I was talking about the trackers, right? Where we're tracking data every day or every hour, sometimes every minute. The trick to doing that involves some scripting that you can schedule and that you can have automated and working in the background. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how you can do that with your own projects at a workshop this afternoon as well. So I hope you join me, and thanks so much.